It has been a chaotic last several days with NAR's proposed settlement of $418 million. Now, of course, there's plenty of question marks that arose from that particular proposed settlement, and also certain things that we do know are also not looking fantastic, right? We understood that it was going to look different. We just didn't necessarily know how different it was going to be. So today, what we're going to look at is more on the positive side of things. There's a lot of all the other videos are in the negative world, including the videos that I've made previously. So understanding what's actually happening, but looking at the other side of the equation, at least for now, from the things that we do know, or the things that we speculate are coming very, very, very soon, let's look at what the positives could potentially be from this, because it's not all terrible. It's not all bad. It's not all going to be absolutely disastrous for the entire industry, although it is going to impact it. It's going to impact it. There's no question about that. So let's look at some positive things. Number one, the liability component, right? So we understand that as NAR members, you are now going to be liable for the things that have been alleged with the price, the commission collusion, inflation of prices, and all that fun stuff. So you yourself, from a personal standpoint, you are released from liability. Your brokerage, most brokerages, very important, most brokerages have been released from liability. But if you've been a NAR member, you are essentially, quote unquote, in the clear, at least from this particular case. If you do something else to home sellers, then yeah, you're not going to, you're still going to be held liable from that standpoint. So at least from that standpoint, that's a little bit, that's as a positive, right? The second thing, the uncertainty of this whole commission suit that has been looming over the industry for the last several years, it's eventually going to end. Now we have a bit more clarity on what this means. So the first thing that shook up the industry from this particular standpoint was the petition to make this a class action suit. And when it was granted and it wasn't dismissed, well, that was another shakeup. Well, when it went to court and ultimately the entities that were named in that suit ended up losing, that was another shakeup. And now we're seeing the quote unquote aftermath. So again, I'm not making light of that. I understand that it's overall, it is a bad thing. I firmly do believe that as well. But again, looking from the positive side of things, this whole uncertainty, this dark cloud that's been looming over the industry, we're starting to see how it's going to shape out here in the near future. Now, again, it's a proposed settlement. We still have months for this to actually clear out. And there's a lot more questions than answers, it seems like. So there's still uncertainty. It's a rocky road at the current moment, but very soon we're going to have, or in the future, we're going to have some clarity on what this ultimately looks like. One thing that is often overlooked as well is it could have been worse, right? So if we think that this was a disastrous settlement, or if we understand, or if we think that this was just NAR selling us out, and whatever your opinion may happen to be, and was there a better deal to be gotten out there? Maybe, but can you imagine the deals that were proposed prior to this? Can you imagine how there, if this was the medium, this was the concession point? Well, it could have absolutely been worse, because you don't get to a settlement without actually compromising from both sides, especially when the verdict had already been read, especially when the entity that the plaintiffs are already understood what they stood to gain from the actual winning of the lawsuit. And I understand that it was this, or potentially fate, not be able to collect because NAR or the other entities would claim bankruptcy. So that's also a thing. But so that was a third thing. It could have been worse, right? So the fourth positive thing, and this is going to be the red meat for the individuals that are super anti-NAR, and in some respects, I myself don't necessarily have a favorable opinion of the organization, but NAR is going to lose its power it once had. There's no way that it can't. You have a lot of major you have major brokerages that have already made it optional as a condition of their settlement to not be members of NAR. And so the membership is going down just because of that already. This decision, well, think about the other entities that were left out, the big box brokerages, or the big brokerages that were left out of this particular settlement. How do you think they feel? Right? So I don't necessarily think that once they get the settlements under signature by both parties, one of those conditions is going to be that their agents, aka us agents, are not going to be required to be members of NAR, right? So again, for the anti-NAR individuals out there, and I myself would actually, I'm going to try to be as neutral as possible. I understand there's a lot more animus from other agents out there than myself, so I'm going to leave it at that. But NAR is going to have some additional competition. We already know that the AREA is already spinning up. We understand that settlements are going to make a requirement that agents don't have to join NAR, and just membership continues to go down, as well as less agents that are going to be in the field moving forward, right? So again, this is just something that for those individuals that didn't necessarily like that NAR had all this power from us agents as well, don't count on that being the case much longer. The fifth thing is there's going to be less time wasted for agents. So right now, the way that it works is when you get a potential buyer that is calling you, you're immediately hopping in that car and going and showing a home. Now, of course, that's not every single agent out there, but a good portion of us agents, I have fallen guilty to that myself. So with the promise or the hopeful wish that there's going to be a commission check at the end of that showing, we get into the car in haste and then go and show that home. Well, now that we have to get the written agreement, so buyer representation agreement executed before something else happens, aka showings and all that other fun stuff. Well, at this point, there's going to be a lot less leads that you're going to need to follow up with, because many of those individuals are either going to just stop reaching out to agents altogether because they understand that now they're going to be asked for representation agreements to be executed, and or some folks are just not going to be as willing to execute and commit to you, but now you at least know, right? Before it was just, hey, I hope they use me, but there's a reason that we as agents use the phrase buyers are liars, right? There's a reason that happened. Well, now that is not going to be that's not going to be used as much. Now they're going to still continue life, sure, but now we're going to at least know their intentions up front a little bit faster, right? So there's going to be less time wasting. And the sixth positive thing is that the industry as a whole, I do believe, is going to become a little bit more of a professionals league. So I've seen some other individuals call it amateurs versus professionals. So in this regard, I do believe that the leveling up of the industry is going to happen, because it has to, the way that the business is going to be run moving forward. So it's going to allow for agents that are very serious about this particular business and are having these conversations with buyers, having these conversations with sellers. There's a different conversation that needs to be had. So you're going to be treating buyers the same, if not better, than sellers. So you're going to typically, buyers, you wouldn't necessarily have the same types of conversations that you would with sellers. You wouldn't necessarily be as intentional with them. You wouldn't necessarily be as prepared with buyers than you were with sellers. So there was a different preparation that would come into that you would come into from a listing perspective in a buyer's presentation. At least a majority of real estate agents acted that way, myself included in some occasions. So now you're going to be in a position where you're going to be interacting with people in a more professional manner, given that there's going to be more established agents that are going to be in this industry, and not as many there's still going to be untrained agents for sure, but there's not going to be as many, I don't believe. Now, there's going to be some agents that win absolutely big after this. There's going to be some agents that figure something out. There's going to be brokerages that figure something out that's going to allow their agent count to explode. So there will be huge winners here. There's going to be agents that, again, figure things out. They're going to either look at a different model that makes sense for them. They're going to look at different ways to work with clients at scale. There's going to be so many different things that happen, not only from a technology standpoint, the way that you do business, the way that you scale your business. So from an agent's perspective, there are some agents that are about to win big and in a huge, huge way. Don't mishear me. There's going to be agents that lose and lose in a huge way as well. But again, we're looking at the positive side of things. So at this point, you have to decide if you're going to be that person, that agent that looks for solutions, that looks for a way to grow your business and scale in this new norm and adapt as quickly as possible so you can start gaining that market share that's out there to be had at the present moment. those are a few thoughts that I had when it comes to, hey, what are the positives coming out of this? There's going to be more. There's a few more questions than answers at the moment. So I'll kind of put this as a part one, if you will. But in the near future, as we learn a little bit more of what's actually happening and is coming our way, I'll make sure that I update this particular list. But as far as I'm concerned, it's after having read so many different things, the articles, the settlement, everything in between, and just seeing so many different takes on this, just wanted to provide this particular positive side of things, at least for now. Don't mishear me. There's still a lot of questions. Don't mishear me. There's still a lot of negative that came from this, but at the same time, looking at the positive that comes from it, it's not out of bounds either. All right, well, let me know in the comment section down below, what do you think is a positive out of this? There has to be some positive because it's not all bad. Anyway, let me know in the comment section down below. I'll see you on the next one.